Right, Ryan, thank you very much for giving us some of your time to chat today. Firstly, congratulations on not an MMA-related success, but you recently went on to do SAS Who Dares Wins, which was a television show, and you kind of passed assessment is the best way to put it. But do you want to explain to people at home exactly what it entailed who didn't watch it maybe, or what it was, or why even you did it?
Yeah, so basically the show was to see if civilians could pass selection, okay, and selection in the SAS takes about 6 months, and we did like an 8-day course, so we didn't do the real thing, obviously, but we got as close to it as you can get without actually doing the actual selection process.
And how was it then? Go on, let's be honest.
How tough was it?
Yeah.
It was horrendous. It was the worst thing I've ever done. Easily. Yeah, easily the worst thing I've ever done. I've had lots of hard fights and hard fight camps and things like that, but it was like that times 100. It was unbelievably tough. We had no sleep, nowhere near enough food. I lost about 5 kilos in 8 days, which is quite a lot. And I had everything they gave me. I had as much as I could, but 5 kilos weight loss straight away. And it was just non-stop, hour after hour after hour after hour.
And go on.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, right, I'm ex-military myself. I'm a military boy, so, hats off to anyone that wants to have a crack at anything like that. Has there ever been a desire in yourself to sort of, like, go down the military path? Obviously, you get people that have things outside of the military. They always fancied it, but there was enough keeping them out, shall we say.
Yeah.
How about yourself?
Like, it's tricky for me because growing up in Northern Ireland, especially where I grew up, right in sort of the middle of things, the military, it's not quite as easy as it is for people in England, and that sort of plays a part. And I think there's a part of me that has that want to do something in the military, or at least that kind of lifestyle. But I've just sort of stayed away from it, I don't think I could actually do it in reality. And then this show was kind of like a perfect segue for me between the two, I got the taste of it, but I didn't have to actually do it.
I was going to say, it's not because the forms were too hard to fill in, is it?
Sorry?
It's not because the forms were too hard to fill in, was it?
Yeah, well, that's why I started fighting, because there's way less forms. You just have to get in there, weigh in. As long as you can read, like, your weight in kilos, you're sweet.
to be honest with you, they don't let you in if you do fill the forms in right. That's how I got in. I must have filled it in wrong, and they went, "Yep, he'll do. He'll run at the enemy."
Exactly. That's what they're looking for. And I honestly, it was I've always like had an admiration for it, and I've always been drawn towards those kind of challenges, And I see people doing stuff like Tough Mudder and endurance races, and I always fancied a crack at it because of my MMA career. I was always so focused on that I didn't really have time. But this came up, and I thought this is a unique opportunity to have it filmed, and I can always look back on it and remember it. That was kind of the main reason why I did it, because you could do things like this, but to have it actually filmed and have the real guys there and be under that pressure, it added to it.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I can sympathise with the Northern Ireland thing. I actually did serve 4 years in Northern Ireland. I was a bit of a crazy idiot when I was back in my younger days, shall we say, and I can remember like we'd go out and we'd have our like cover stories, I mean, I was being from the Isle of Man, I had an excuse, so I'm over from the Isle of Man because it's good nightlife and stuff like that. But you'd have girls coming up to you, and normally at that age they'd ask you what car you drove or something like that. But these girls would come up to you and say, "Are you Protestant?" or something like that, and you'd be like, have I got to be religious or something?
No, I'm just short. So
all I want to do is get laid. What I mean? I've got to go to church or something first. What I mean? It's like, forget the condoms. Have you been to church today? But yeah, I mean, I can imagine I mean, how have you actually found? What's the feedback you've had from back home? Have they generally? Don't mean to push you into a sticky situation here, but have they been good?
It's been good. I grew up in a Catholic background, but in a Protestant area. So right from the off in the early '90s and stuff, as you'll know, obviously serving there, things were tricky. defense, you would have a certain bias towards the military, you know. And then as you get older, like I went to a mixed school, which I was very lucky because when I went to a mixed school, I got to know both sides of the community, and that helped me massively. But even at like 16 or 18, I wouldn't have had the sort of the maturity to be able to do something like this, because I would have seen it. I would have seen it as a problem. And then living in England for 8 years, you know, I guess that sort of allowed me to break away from that narrow-mindedness. You know.
To be honest with you, though, I've had rocks thrown me from both sides of the fence, so...
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
It's complicated.
The Catholic pole is bigger, but there's still a few from the Protestants.
Exactly, yeah. You can't win.
Oh, no. It just depends what month it is.
No.
You know, it's... or what road you're going down at the time.
Yeah. You gotta be like, you just turn the corner and you're in the right street or the wrong street. But like, for me, it's been really good because luckily, I've managed to get really, really good responses, you know, on social media from both sides of the community. People coming up to me and approaching me, and you know, from both sides saying that they really enjoyed it and that they supported me and stuff. And I was expecting a lot more friction, but to be honest with you, I think people have moved on, and I think people are a lot more open to this kind of thing.
Okay, now, was there anything particular then in the training that you did that was like, if you can pinpoint anything that was particularly just brutal out of everything, and what was the best part? What was the worst, and what was the best part of it?
Like, the hardest part was the fact that there was no external or extrinsic motivation, because like, you weren't going to win anything, you weren't going to get any money, you weren't going to join the SAS. The whole time you were getting absolutely hammered. You were thinking, what am I doing? What the fuck is wrong with me? Why am I even doing this? And the hardest part was probably keeping yourself going. But then, like, actual on the tasks, I found the running horrendous because I'm not a runner, and I was with all these triathletes and Ironman people and stuff like that, and they could all run for days. So sticking with them was really hard. And then but like on exercise, the physical parts weren't the worst because you just kind of get on with it. A bit like fighting, you know, you just get on with it because you're used to that physical pain.
Yeah.
Even if it's a little bit harder, but you're used to the idea of going through pain bars. But the psychological pressure was the worst. The interrogation was worse than anything I've ever experienced. Yeah,
it's like I used to find, like, whenever I was sort of struggling with something, I'd always look for somebody else that looked like they were struggling worse than me. And think to myself, so fucking glad I'm not them. You know, yeah, I feel like shit, but they're in a world of shit. Like, you know what I mean? And that's how I used to motivate myself. You know, and or I'd think to myself, at least I'm not a civvy back home or something like that. You know, like anything at all. Like your reward you've got now, haven't you? Because everyone's probably saying to you, like, well done and all that, and that's your reward. You obviously you didn't have it at the time. But now it comes through, you know what I mean? And it's like every time somebody comes up to you and says, like, oh, I couldn't have done that, you know what I mean? And like that's your medal or your £1,000 prize or whatever, you know.
Yeah, that you're right. Like, I'm sorry, my internet's a little bit. I guess for me, like, the best thing that I got out of it was the fact that afterward, that's much more confidence in my ability to push my limits, you know. And like, I never knew that I had those limits, you know. There were times I thought we can't do any more, and then we just went that little bit further and a little bit further, and then 3 hours later we're still going, and I'm thinking, this is just ridiculous, you know.
Yeah, but the thing is, I was thinking the kind of the gains that you got from that, like you say, that kind of confidence and going that extra bit that you never thought maybe possible. Do you think then this is going to add to your mental strength to competing when you're to get back in the cage? I imagine you're wanting to get back in the cage at the start of the year.
Yeah.
And do you think this is going to add to you when you're doing your training and not just competing as well? Do you think now you've got a bit more
mental?
Yeah, just mental strength, really.
Absolutely. Sorry if you're getting some feedback there. I'm getting some feedback on my speaker.
No, we're not.
Yeah.
We just.
It's all them viruses from watching the porn sites that are doing it. That's what it is.
Yeah, exactly. I've definitely got loads of viruses.
That's how we really got through the 8 weeks, ladies and gents.
So I fought Chris Fishgold. I did a fight camp straight off the back of that show, and everything's been different. Everything has been different. My attitude to training, my attitude to diet, my attitude to preparation, everything's been totally different. It's the best experience I've ever had in hindsight.
Yeah, I was going to say, because you got the that was on Made for the Cage, and was it a draw? Was it a majority draw? I think off the top of my head.
Yeah,
and
no.
you know, you've got, like I was going to say, because you'd be classed as one of the prospects in UK MMA. You know, with the way things are going with your career, I imagine you're wanting to have a kind of big splash, make a good effort in 2016, and maybe branch out. You know, to hopefully maybe, you know, everyone wants to get that kind of UFC or even Bellator kind of contract. Yeah. I don't know if you've heard yet, but the Bellator are coming to the UK. They're coming to London soon. So would that maybe be something that will ignite you to maybe, you know, push on a little bit more?
Absolutely. I want to fight the best guys all the time, and that's like why I fought Chris Fishgold, because he's one of those guys that I thought, or that's above me, you know, in terms of the UK sort of, not the rankings, but, you know, the knowledge within the UK scene. And I'm only in this game for the challenges. I'm not in it for, even, you know, the UFC and Bellator is great, but more important for me is just that idea to fight the best guys that I can fight and get that experience. You know, it's a bit like that show. It's something that I want to look back on and say I went completely balls to the wall and I did everything I could do. And I didn't take any backward steps. And I want to be proud of what I've achieved when I'm finished.
I was going to say, don't say you're in it for the money, because
no
money. The only money in it is betting against Ronda Rousey.
I was going to say you want to get back into that training if you want money. Bloody hell, there's probably more money in that than MMA. But but you know, I think it's a good thing for MMA as well, with what you've done for yourself, the exposure wise and stuff as well. Everything I think will kind of, you know, all come together as well for 2016. Is that little added, like you say, momentum behind you as well, because you'll get the interest from people who maybe never watched it before, or maybe were curious but never. I think what you've done is, it's a good thing. You've put yourself out there, not in an MMA perspective, but you've put yourself in a different area.
Prime time TV. Well, you know, in every home in the UK. You know.
No, but it's. I think it's handy. I think for MMA, for people to understand that. Yeah, well, do you know what? These are people that will push themselves and test themselves, and they're human beings. Because a lot of people sometimes just see them as Bob Barrack. People will put gloves on and smash his head in. I think it's good that, you know, you've done something like this. I think it definitely gives a different perspective, and you've also, you know, for yourself, you got a lot more out of it probably than anyone will understand.
And to be honest with you, the way, I mean, not the last episode, but the episode before that, the way, you know, like the weakest link, you helped carry the weakest link. I mean, you picked up his bag, you know, you were trying to give encouragement, stuff like that. You weren't being gung-ho for yourself sort of thing. You were like that team player, and that's anything other than an aggressive thug.
Yeah, and what you didn't see was he was actually taking food out of the guy's bag.
You're after the warm jacket, weren't you?
Exactly. I felt like I was representing martial arts and mixed martial arts to a certain extent, and I didn't try and put on a face or anything, but I wanted to let people know that there's more to us. You know, we have a lot to give. I think we're not just thugs, and we're not just barbarians, and I think we can be just as thoughtful and just as well mannered and just as intelligent as the next guy. You know, and I wanted to represent that at like an elite level outside of MMA. That was exciting for me.
Well, I'll say purely from a military point of view and on a personal level, I saw fantastic qualities that would definitely work in that environment. You know, I know they said it on the show, but I actually messaged you beforehand and said that I was very impressed. You know, you can play the grey man, but at the same time, you will help that weakest link. You know what I mean? You will, you know, because it's probably the most team job there is. Like, so, you know, well done for me, and I'm super impressed. You know, so, you know. Fantastic effort.
Now, thank you very much. I appreciate that so much.
And before we let you go, for people who maybe want to give you a follow then and get an idea of what you do outside of making yourself want to go to sleep and cry, and wonder why you can see a rib cage all the time. How can people jump on social networking stuff and maybe kind of join you on your MMA side of things?
Yeah, so if you follow me at Ryan Roddy MMA on Twitter, that's kind of the gateway to the rest of my bullshit online. And you follow me on there. And Bad Boy Training Center is where I work full time in Gateshead. And I'd also like to sort of shout out a few people that have helped me along the way. So I've got Vinny Shorman, who's like my mind coach. And I've got Leon, both of them, who's my strength and conditioning coach. And I've got a lot of guys around me that are really, really helpful. They don't get a lot of credit,
Yeah, I think there's one soft arse called Tommy Quinn.
Yeah. We live together here. He's not here, but his dog's here somewhere.
I'm all for those relationships. I think they're good.
Yeah,
equal rights.
I think they're good. Yeah, I think people should promote it.
Exactly. You guys know all about it.
Exactly. That's what
that's what I said. The bath's still warm.
Yeah. So Ryan, thanks for coming on, mate. And do you know what? I look forward to next year and seeing what matchups get made up with you. I think Made for Cage will be trying to drag you back onto their show as soon as they get next year's cards matched up. So I think we'll keep a close eye. We'll let people as well know.
2016 is going to be a good year, I reckon.
It is. So Ryan, have a great time relaxing and getting a bit of the public eye on you at the moment. So have a great time and thanks again.
Thank you.